Welcome back to the Deep Dive, where we take complex business narratives and turn them into the most interesting conversation you'll have all week.
And today we are definitely diving deep.
We are. We're looking at PayPal, and we're going far beyond just, the button you click at checkout.
Right.
We're treating this as a full academic case study in FinTech history. I mean, this is a foundational company. Its innovations basically set the stage for every digital wallet you use today.
That's exactly the right way to look at it. Our mission here is to really analyze its origins, which were pretty unlikely, and then dissect its business model, its strategies,
And ultimately understand its impact.
its enduring impact, on how global commerce even works.
Yeah.
PayPal isn't just some old tech company. It's a pioneer that proved digital money could actually be trusted.
So let's set the scene. We're talking late 1990s. The company starts as Confinity in 98, then it merges with X.com. And if you think back to that time, online commerce was, well, it was the digital Wild West.
Oh, completely. Unstructured, unregulated, and just utterly lacking any kind of reliable payment system.
It feels like a classic market failure.
It was. You had consumers who were starting to shop online, but there was so much friction, so much fear. The traditional banks were completely stuck in an analog world.
Checks and slow card networks.
Exactly. And the crucial thing was people did not trust putting their credit card details into some random website or, a forum. The risk of fraud just felt astronomical, and that's the gap PayPal stepped into. Their initial proposition was really just three things: speed, simplicity, and trust. Trust was the big one. It was revolutionary because they acted as a shield. They let you pay for something, across the globe using just an email address.
Keeping your real bank info hidden from the seller.
Precisely. And that single promise just instantly lowered the barrier to entry for millions of people. It made digital money feel both safe and easy, which was just unheard of.
That foundational promise, that shield, is what let them have their big breakthrough moment. And for PayPal, that success didn't come from banks or big retailers.
No, not at all. It came from the messy, high-volume world of eBay in the early 2000s.
eBay was the perfect crucible for them, wasn't it?
It was. You had millions of these high-frequency, small-value transactions. These weren't corporations. They were just, regular people selling used things from their house.
And they had no good way to get paid.
They needed a fast, cheap way to handle payments without mailing a check or meeting in person.
It was a captive audience just begging for a solution.
Exactly. PayPal brought in instant payments, which was huge. But more importantly, it cut down on fraud risk and gave people a kind of rudimentary buyer protection.
Like a sense of safety. An escrow almost.
That's the word. It was an escrow-like sense of safety that had been totally missing from online auctions.
And this is where it gets really powerful, right? This success creates that self-reinforcing two-sided network effect.
It is a textbook example. I mean, buyers started using PayPal because all the sellers had it.
And sellers had to accept it because that's what the buyers, their customers, trusted and wanted to use.
That loop is everything. By solving that one fundamental problem of trust, PayPal didn't just help e-commerce. It became the foundational layer for e-commerce to scale up like it did.
They just rode eBay's growth curve straight to the top.
Almost instantly.
Okay, so let's pivot to the mechanics. Once they've built this network, built this trust, how does PayPal actually structure itself to make money?
Well, at its core, it's a very sophisticated digital intermediary. It connects the buyer and the seller, and it guarantees the transaction is safe using these complex risk systems.
And the revenue comes from?
The primary stream, even today, is from transaction fees. And those are generally charged to the merchant, to the seller, for making that payment happen.
But the PayPal of today is so much bigger than just that simple transaction model.
Oh, absolutely. As the platform grew, the revenue model diversified into really a whole financial infrastructure. We're talking currency conversion, a whole suite of merchant services.
And credit products, right? That became a huge part of it.
A massive part. You have to look at things like PayPal Working Capital.
Can you break that down? Because that shows how they moved from just being a button to being a financial partner.
Certainly. So PayPal Working Capital offers small business loans to its merchants. But instead of using traditional bank data, it uses the merchant's own PayPal sales history to underwrite the loan.
So it's lending based on behavior they can see on their own platform.
Proprietary data, exactly. Then you have their big push into buy now, pay later with PayPal Credit.
Right.
That keeps you inside their ecosystem for big purchases. And, of course,
Venmo, which was huge for locking in a younger, mobile-first audience, at least in the U.S.
Right. It solved a demographic problem for them.
Which brings us to the tech. You mentioned their risk systems. In those early days, what let them outcompete actual banks with decades of data?
This is probably the single most important technical detail in their story. Their core advantage was their fraud detection algorithms.
How is it different?
Well, unlike the banks who are always looking backward at historical data,
Hmm.
reacting to fraud after it happened, PayPal pioneered real-time behavioral pattern analysis.
Okay, what does that actually look like? Are we talking about watching how fast someone tries to spend money?
It's exactly that, but at a massive scale. They were mapping dozens of data points at once. IP address, geography, the speed of transactions on a new account, the device being used.
So if an account opens in one country and tries to send a big payment from another country 5 minutes later,
The system flags it, or just denies it automatically, not reviewed by a person days later.
so they weren't waiting for the fraud report. They were identifying the fraudulent intent while it was happening.
That is the critical distinction.
Hmm.
It slashed their loss rates, which gave merchants confidence, and it let them scale globally where traditional banks just couldn't. That risk architecture was their moat.
That ability to scale gave them dominance, but it also led to a pretty major strategic conflict, didn't it? Let's talk about the eBay era.
It was like a complex relationship. The acquisition in 2002 was huge for them. It cemented their dominance. But by the 2010s, that relationship was holding them back.
How so?
eBay was slow to go mobile, and it kind of saw PayPal as just a cost center. It was actively restricting PayPal from serving merchants who weren't on eBay.
So the separation in 2015 must have been a massive turning point.
It was their liberation moment.
Yeah.
PayPal was finally free to compete everywhere, in mobile apps, in stores, everywhere. After 2015, they had to prove they could survive in the wild.
And their main strategy for that was acquisitions, it seems. They had to buy their way into areas where they were falling behind.
A very aggressive acquisition strategy, yeah. The 2013 Braintree deal was massive. It gave them modern developer tools, and crucially, it included Venmo.
Which solved that mobile peer-to-peer problem.
Right. Then they bought iZettle, which gave them the in-store point-of-sale hardware to compete directly with Square.
And honey, that one felt a bit different, more like a consumer data play.
That's exactly what it was. Honey embedded them at the very start of the shopping journey. It gave them coupon tools, sure, but more importantly, it gave them incredibly valuable shopping data. Each acquisition was strategically filling a hole.
So when we look at their competitive landscape today, I mean, it sounds like an intensely contested environment.
Intensely contested is an understatement. Buyer power is incredibly high. Consumers and merchants can switch payment providers with almost zero cost,
If Stripe has a better API, a developer will switch tomorrow.
overnight. And the rivalry is fierce. You have Stripe Online, you have Apple Pay and Google Pay on the device, and you have Block, Square. But the biggest structural threat might be the substitutes.
You mean the actual plumbing, the government and banklet systems.
Precisely. We're talking about the real-time payment systems rolling out everywhere. Faster payments in the UK, FedNow in the US, UPI in India.
And the key difference is what? Speed and cost.
They're instant and interbank. The money moves directly from one bank account to another, instantly. It dramatically reduces the need for a costly middleman like PayPal.
So if the government is offering free instant transfers, that completely undermines the value of a middleman that charges a fee.
It forces that middleman to justify its cost purely with value-added services. Fraud protection, lending, buyer protection, things the basic bank rails don't offer.
And yet, despite all this pressure, they're still a leader. How do they maintain that differentiation?
Well, they rely on the inertia they built. First, just brand recognition. The PayPal brand means safety to millions of people. Second, those fraud systems, they're decades in the making.
And the regulatory headache.
A massive one.
Mhm.
Holding licenses in over 200 markets is a huge barrier to entry. And finally, just the breadth of their ecosystem. It's still a one-stop shop for a lot of digital finance.
Let's talk about the challenges facing them today, though, because the market they helped create is now trying to run right past them.
The challenges are profound. First, the shift to mobile native. Apple Pay and Google Pay are the defaults on your phone. They're the path of least resistance. PayPal has to fight for every click.
And then there's Stripe. Stripe is just dominating that developer-focused merchant segment, which is where all the new online businesses get started.
And that leads right to pricing pressure. PayPal's fees are seen as high compared to the new guys. They're constantly having to justify that cost, which eats into margins.
Plus the operational cost of just staying compliant everywhere.
Exactly. Navigating things like anti-money laundering and data protection across 200 markets is an immense non-revenue generating expense.
There's also that internal tension, right? Being a big publicly traded company.
Absolutely. The market pressure to deliver profit can slow down innovation compared to, an agile startup that's just burning through venture capital.
And the demographic battle never ends.
Right. Venmo is strong in the US, but they're always fighting to stay relevant with younger users who are flocking to things like Cash App. And then you have the long-term threat of decentralized systems, blockchain, crypto, all promising near zero fees.
It really is a perfect case study of a pioneer navigating a world that it helped build but can't control anymore. So when we look past all that, what is PayPal's long-term legacy?
Oh, the legacy is deep. First, they standardized buyer protection. They made online shopping feel safe globally. Second, their work in risk modeling set the benchmark for the entire industry.
And you have to mention the PayPal alumni network, of course. That group of early employees who went on to found Tesla, LinkedIn, Yelp. It's one of the most influential groups in Silicon Valley history. But I think the most significant thing is this. They accelerated mass consumer trust in digital money. They paved the way for the entire fintech ecosystem we have today. So the takeaway is pretty clear. PayPal is a foundational pioneer. Its innovations are basically the infrastructure of modern digital payments.
And maintaining that leadership today, it all depends on how well they can adapt.
No.
Adapt to mobile-first behavior, to these lower-cost real-time payments, and to a field of rivals who are incredibly agile.
It really makes you wonder. PayPal's whole success was built on creating trust when the internet was a scary, anonymous place. But now you have decentralized systems like crypto. You have mobile wallets tied to your face or your fingerprint. So how long can PayPal's old advantages, that brand name, those licenses, that centralized control, outweigh the demand for cheaper, faster alternatives? What new kind of trust will the next generation of payments even require?